All right.
All right.
All right.
Why do you have an accent?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So we are live once again with another Hapa Month live stream.
Yep.
And tonight we have Adam Morgan with us. He is the host of the Adam Morgan Show, and you're the author of the Angler Tutorial. So thanks for joining us. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Excited to be on the show.
Yeah. So can you kind of like tell us a little about your history in terms of tech? Because I know we usually ask like your mix, your ethnic mix. I guess we'll start with that. I don't know where I'm going with this. Sorry. So yeah, what's your ethnic mix? I'm sorry. My head hurts. I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm half Korean. My dad's, white American, whatever you want to call that. And then my mom is full Korean. So she was born, raised in Korea, and now she lives in America.
Nice.
So yeah, half Korean.
Mix.
Yeah, we're the same, just about. Yeah.
Nice.
Was your dad in the military or no?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually how it is.
Are you same too, white dad?
Yep. Yep. White dad. What branch of the military?
Army.
Ah, okay. That's where we're different. My dad's in the Air Force. But my brother's in the Army, so not too far off.
Yeah, my brother was in the Air Force for like a year or two, but I'm civilian, never did it. Just straight into programming and all that.
Was there any reason why you didn't go in the military? It just wasn't for you?
Yeah, just not for me. And then some political things like going through college, just kind of goes against a little bit of what I believe in, so just not for me, because I'm more of a libertarian. So
okay,
I just don't agree with the government in a lot of ways. And then the government's foreign policy, that kind of thing. I just don't want to be caught up in that, the cog in that machine. But I don't like have any sort of resentment towards anybody in my family or like towards people in the military in any way. It's just not for me in the world that we live in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of go towards more the libertarian side? Like, what was kind of the light bulb that went off on your head?
So it was actually in college. I was in college, and I don't know. I was kind of one of those people. I mean, I think like a lot of kids growing up, maybe, where you grow up and you're just so used to the two-party system. You're just so used to Republican and Democrat. That's really all you hear about in school. They're not bringing up third parties or, like communism, socialism. That, I mean, a little bit in historical context, but not in like a modern day context, I don't think. But then in college, I think it was a friend read one of his books, and he read it. He said it was like an amazing book. He was like, you got to check it out. I forget which one it was. I think it was one of his first books that he released. Forget the title. But he was like, dude, you got to check out this book. I read it, and it was just one of those things where it was almost like hearing a kind of political party or just rationale on political issues that you just never really heard before. It almost felt like you had to choose between a Republican and Democrat rather than having some sort of underlying philosophy that allowed them to like pick and choose between the two issues, which is why sometimes when you're talking to a Democrat, they think you're a conservative, whereas when you're talking to a conservative, they think you're a Democrat, because you have that underlying philosophy that allows you to pick and choose from both sides, and they're kind of confused. So reading Ron Paul and just that kind of rationale just like opened my eyes to something new. And then, like most college students, took a bunch of politics classes in college, just kind of geeked out on it a little bit. And then yeah, so that was kind of the start of it in college, reading Ron Paul.
Was it was it called The Revolution, a Manifesto?
Yes, that was it. Yep. Yeah, really good book. If you haven't read that, I would recommend that.
Yeah, I listened to the audiobook. It's pretty good.
If he just wasn't so old. I think if he was like 20, 30 years younger, if he was like Rand Paul's age, but was the same guy nowadays, I think he would actually have a chance at doing something impactful politically, or at least more than he has, his age today. But he's still done a lot. I mean, he's influenced a lot of people for sure.
I think like a lot of people today would be more open to him rather than, because I saw a couple videos like from him like back in the, I think it was like the 70s or 80s or something, and a lot of people were like really like, oh my God, he's so radical,
Remember that one
So.
you're saying where he was the guest of his show? Or
Yeah,
whatever?
he was the guest on some like show where the audience just gets super rowdy, and it was a bunch of conservatives, and he was talking about how we should end the war on drugs, and the people in the audience were like, "You just want people to die." I'm like, "How do you come to that conclusion?"
Yeah, it's crazy because I was probably in like what, the 2008 election or leading up to that.
Yeah.
So that was like a crazy idea back then, ending the war on drugs. Whereas nowadays, I think talking about that is like pretty chill as far as a social issue goes, or at least more so than back then.
Yeah, it's more brought up nowadays. It's more. It's not like. It's not. I don't know how to say it, but it's not as taboo, I guess, than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we have Trump as president and porn stars. It's like, okay, we got a bunch of other shit going on now.
Yeah, I got a whole crazy.
Yeah,
As
war
Dave
on
Smith
drugs.
says, it's a cartoon world we're living in.
Yeah, it's crazy times, man.
Yeah. So how did your parents meet?
I can't remember a ton of the details, but my dad was stationed in Korea at the time, and I think it was like his second time there. And I think they met at a bar or something like that. You know, talked there. Yeah, great story. Right? Met at a bar, and then they met up the next day and went somewhere for like lunch or something. I'm not sure. That's like all I know. I think we drove by, like I visited a few years ago, and I know we were driving up to see some of my family, like my mom's cousins, and I think we drive through and they were like, that's where we met the first day for like lunch or whatever. But yeah, I don't have like the whole elaborate story as to how they met. Sorry.
Did they get married in Korea or in the U.S.?
The US.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm missing that one too. No, they might have had to in Korea in order for her to move over here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's if they did immigration like the way where you get married in the U.S., they probably it probably that would probably be the easiest way to do it.
You guys are killing it on asking all the questions about my parents that I don't know.
Oh,
There's not too many of them, but you guys have nailed it 2 for 2 so far. Well done.
but have you lived in Western countries your whole life, or have you lived in Asia before? Or
I lived in Korea for 1 year. So I was born in Texas, and I only lived there like when I was for like a year or two. And then I moved to Hawaii, which is where my brother was born.
Nice.
And then that was like, you know, I was still like pre-kindergarten, but a little like old enough to remember a little bit. And then moved to Maryland, went to like kindergarten, first grade there. And then I lived for a year in Korea. And I actually went there for second grade. But I've only actually lived in Korea for 1 year out of my life.
did you go to the what is it, the international school, right? Military school?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a private school that was an English speaking school. So
Do you speak Korean?
I knew how to when I lived there. I was fluent when I lived there, but I don't anymore. I know like a few words, like a little bit, but I forgot. Or when we moved back, you know, it's like cool to know a second language when you're in high school, but when you're in like second and third grade, it's like the worst thing ever. Like everybody picks on you about it. So me and my brother had zero desire to like speak Korean at school or even have it as like a secret language amongst each other because we went to school in like an all white town. So in high school, if we would have moved back in high school, it would have been cool because everybody was like, oh shit, you know a second language. But when you're a little kid, that's just another thing for kids to pick on you about. So we were like, screw that. We forgot it pretty quickly.
Do you feel like in the US they treated you more as like Asian and then vice versa in Korea?
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's almost like I never fit in wherever I go. Because in America, I mean, unless I'm in like if I'm in Alpharetta, Georgia, or like Duluth, there's like a big Korean population up there. If I'm up there, then I kind of blend in. But even amongst them, like if they're full Korean, they know a lot of them can tell that I'm American. So it's like, but point is like in America, I don't blend in because obviously I'm Korean unless I'm in a Korean area. But then when I'm in Korea, everybody over there thinks I'm American. So it's like no matter where I am, I stick out. So, but yeah, so wherever I grew up, you know, they could definitely tell.
You ever get any girls looking at you like, oh my God, you look so good?
A little bit. Depends where you're at. Midwest, I think I'm like less attractive. Like when I lived in Ohio, I think I'm less attractive there than I am like in Georgia. Because I think Georgia is it's a little bit more it's more diverse than Ohio was. So I just feel like I do better in the more diverse area than I do in Ohio. Even though they think they're more progressive.
Yeah.
I do better in Georgia.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the like, especially in Asia, it's a thing. Like, if you're half, then you're like, oh my God, are you gonna go model or something? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I never got to experience any of that because when I lived there, I was in second grade, so I was pretty young.
Even when you visited as an adult?
Once when I was like 15 or 16, I was in like high school, I think, and then again, or wait, Korea. No, that was like younger, but most recently, like 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so I went back 3 years ago, and it had been like 15 years. So yeah, it was like second grade, and then most recently, like 3 years ago.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking about like girls looking at you because we were just recently in like the Korean part of town here, and she would be like, you know, oh my God, the Korean girls just looking at you like.
Yeah, they're like, what are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think people can tell that you're half Korean though.
Probably.
Yeah.
Like we're like aliens or something to them. You're just like
Korean people here can probably tell I'm half, but like if I'm in Korea, people assume I'm American. So that's how I would think about it. Especially like in Atlanta where I'm at, people would probably assume I'm half, I think. But yeah, I don't know. That'd be my guess. Just because there is more of like a Korean American probably mixed population in Atlanta. So that'd be my guess.
All right. So how did you get into tech and what kind of got you, like what made you interested in that type of field?
So I was always like kind of around technology, like growing up. You know, I was always like a gamer. Like I always played video games growing up. My dad actually knew how to program, even though he's never taught me like anything about it or like almost nothing about it. But like in college, I was just like thinking about majors, thinking of stuff I wanted to do. I did CS for a little bit, decided it wasn't for me. But like after I graduated from college, I was like working in the real world for like a year or so. I just decided like the job that I was doing I didn't really like, and I was like, you know what, programming like has so much potential to like I think branch out with the stuff that you know how to do in programming, that I was like, you know what, it's well paying and I already know a little bit about it, so let me just teach myself how to program and try and get into that. And I'm just interested in technology. Like I like everything about technology. Obviously, I have a podcast talking shit about tech companies, so you know, I enjoy it to that degree as well. But yeah, I don't know. It's just always kind of interested in me ever since I was young.
What's the most difficult aspect of that whole field? Like what's something that when you were learning, it was like the longest for you to kind of get a grasp of?
Programming or like getting into the industry?
Yeah, get in the industry, yeah.
Honestly, just programming itself, because it's so unlike anything else you do, especially in like school, you know, when you're like, whether it's grade school or high school or college or anything like that. It's just doing it. I mean, it's weirder than anything you've ever done. You just have to think differently. And honestly, it just takes patience. Like for me, it's like at first it was a really hard ramp up, but I think it's just being patient with it and understanding that it's not something that you can learn in like a couple weeks. You know, it's like if you were going to learn how to draw or learn how to paint, you're not going to become a pro in like a month. You know, it takes a while to get good at that. So you just have to think about it in that context. Like this isn't like studying for a history exam where you can just memorize a couple dates and facts and you're good. It's going to take a while to learn. So I think it's just that context switch for a lot of people.
So for all of the news stories that you've talked about that's related to tech, what's in your opinion the biggest story in like the past, I guess, decade that you feel should have been talked about more, but nobody really talked about it?
That shouldn't have been talking.
Maybe since 2016. Since
Okay, yeah,
that's
sorry.
when it's been kind of
that's
like
kind of too long. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That shouldn't have been talked about.
Well, not shouldn't have, but that should have.
Didn't get enough coverage.
Yeah.
I would say the one that didn't get enough coverage because I don't think it was ever correctly really represented was probably the James Damore thing. Because I don't think the dialogue about that or the conversation about that was ever really like brought to the same level. It was just like a misrepresentation of what he said. And then to me, it felt like a lot of people who disagreed with that just kind of having that conversation amongst themselves. You know what I mean? Like James Damore was talking about it. You had that whole circle of people, like the intellectual dark web and all that. They were all talking about it. But to me, it never felt like it ever got anywhere. Like both sides ever came to some sort of agreement where like they're like, okay, so Wired, why did you remove scientific citations? Is that right or is that wrong? Like, what's wrong with the science? It just felt like two sides bitching. One side saying why they're wrong and one side saying this is why James Damore is a piece of shit. And I mean, obviously it's a big deal and it had impact for a reason because for me in like the 2.5 years I've been doing the podcast, that's the one story that like broke the usual thing. Like sometimes I'm talking about stuff and it's just people in my industry, but that's the one where, you know, Joe Rogan's talking about it. It's on the news. Like James Damore's on Fox News and CNN. It's like, this is kind of crazy, but to me, it never felt like it got anywhere. It was just, I mean, then again, that's like a lot of things lately, I guess.
Yeah. How did that situation affect you, like directly in terms of you and the job?
I mean, I would say for some people, it gave them they think that they can get fired now. I mean, to me, there's only one person really. There's a couple people that have been fired for their jobs over that kind of stuff. But I think the James Damore story was big because he got fired. Like it was an extreme measure to take. So in some respect, I think people in the industry might be a little more, well, they probably are more hesitant to speak up because there's already one example of Google doing it. And I think if a company like Google does it, in some way it like establishes legitimacy to them doing that. So a smaller company or even another company that's still big like Snapchat might say, well, you know what, we can do it too. If they did it, we have a dude in our company that said something like that too. We'll fire him. So yeah, I would say it's definitely probably had an impact. But for me personally, I've been pretty outspoken for a while. I've said stuff that would sound way worse than a lot of the stuff that he said. So if I'm gonna get fucked, then I'm gonna get fucked. I don't know. I just keep talking. I don't care. I haven't let that influence me in any way.
That's good because I feel like even for me that kind of made me feel like, well, if someone finds my Twitter, then I'm like screwed, you know?
Yeah.
So, which is really dumb because it has nothing to do with my job. So why should it affect what I do in my personal life?
If your job performance was starting to dwindle, then yeah maybe. But
yeah,
you're able to kind of split them apart.
Yeah.
Have you found that kind of difficult to kind of separate the two, or not really?
Work and like politics?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, never. I've never had an issue. That's what's the most crazy thing about all of this. Like all of this chaos of people like looking up tweets of people that they work with and like I've worked with socialists and communists. This was like years ago. Like I don't know about recently, but I've worked with socialists and communists and it's no big deal. Like we've had conversations, you know, we've even been friends. I don't care that their politics are different than mine. So like me personally, I don't care. But for some reason it does for people, but so far nothing that's affected me personally. Like nobody's brought up some of my stuff that I've posted in the past. But I think that's also because of where I live. I think it's because I live in Atlanta. It's a pretty racially diverse place. Even though it's the South, it's not as racist and homophobic and sexist as a lot of people think it might be. I think it's actually probably more politically tolerant than, you know, some people from the West Coast might think it is. So no, I've never had any issue with that. And I think there's a reason why we see a lot of that coming up in more liberal places and not conservative companies.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
It's kind of like the whole male feminist thing ends up always being the predator. You know, it's like
Yeah.
people are talking about it the most end up being the worst.
So in terms of identity politics and tech, how has it been different since you first got into the industry till like now?
Um, it's definitely, I mean, whatever the trend of, radical leftism, regressive leftism, SJWism, whatever you want to call that, it's mirrored that trend. So it's probably below than like what the, Twitter, if you use Twitter as a benchmark, it's probably lower than that, but it mimics that trend. So as crazier as the politics of current events has gotten, I would say the crazier identity politics and the politics within tech has gotten. It just mirrors that, but not as extreme because they have to keep it tame. They can't go too crazy with it.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, it's tech. So you would think, like, oh, so it's like pretty straightforward. But I guess identity politics is going into everything now. So,
yeah, I mean, preferential hiring, events that are for specific groups that exclude specific groups, all of that. I mean, that's in full force. But again, that's not something you really see in the South or like anywhere I've worked. You don't really see that type of thing. But most of what I'm talking about is West Coast, Silicon Valley, the bigger companies, and that's where all of it is. And it's definitely gotten crazier over the past few years.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of it's in the, like you're saying, the West Coast, and all the coastal areas are like that. But like you were saying,
Yeah, like Portland.
Yeah, Portland. Yeah.
Yeah, Portland. I don't know why they're
Seattle.
in the news nowadays. What are they doing over there?
Well, apparently recently they're talking about the Antifa blocking traffic or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
know
there's
if you've
another
seen
thing
it.
today. I don't know what's going on with them, but they're like always in the news.
That's where they seem to be the biggest. Like that's where I'm always seeing stuff happening with them. It's
Yeah.
always Portland. I'm like, you guys need some sun. You guys need to like
Yeah.
breathe and get some light.
I guess
You
that
guys
show Portlandia is a complete farce, because apparently in that show, I don't really know a whole lot about it, but apparently it's supposed to be some cool hip show, whatever. But then you see other stuff about Portland, and it's just like, I don't want to visit. I'm good.
Yeah, like based on the Netflix or Hulu thumbnails or whatever it is, it makes it look all like bright and bubbly. Like the thumbnail's like a bright orange, and then all I see is Antifa shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about Oppression Check and how's that going?
That's
for
what
you?
they need.
Yeah, so that was the thing that probably got me the most shit in the industry. Just because like I got banned from one forum within the industry about that. Got a lot of people that were talking shit about it, that said it was horrible, that were tweeting it, subtweeting me, blocking me. I probably got put on a ton of lists because of that. But yeah, just a joke on the industry. I mean, I'm just putting, for those who don't know what it is, it's this tool that I made that allows you to basically put in 2 job candidates, put in their like race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, preferred gender pronoun, and it tells you which one to hire based on gender or based on, identity politics and affirmative action, all that kind of stuff. And people got pissed about it because, I did it as a parody. I was making fun of what they're doing, but they got pissed about it because, they said it was offensive. I was being homophobic. I was being racist, even though all I'm doing is putting their words into a tool. I'm making their ideas a reality, basically.
Just making it easier for them,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's probably one of my proudest projects that I've done on YouTube to date. But yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that one's, well, I don't know, maybe it is, but I haven't seen your whole YouTube channel, but it looks like that one's the one that definitely got you the most traction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, that one's, I remember watching the first time and just,
yeah, that was like that. This
like,
video is
my
great.
favorite part of that whole thing is at the end. I know it's kind of like a year old or whatever, but it's still funny where he said, Oppression Check is because it's 2017.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've gotten private DMs about that. So there are people who, in the industry who like it. Like that's the thing with a lot of my stuff. There's people in the industry who will send me messages. They'll send me DMs on Twitter saying, "Hey, I agree with what you said about that, but I'm not saying anything because I don't want to start shit." They're like, I don't want the Twitter mobs on me for saying some of this stuff. So yeah, I get DMs. There's more people that agree with or disagree with like the current identity politics in the industry than actually vocalize it, for sure.
Was there anyone that during that whole thing when people were kind of giving you shit and all that, was there anyone that kind of surprised you, like, I can't believe you're a part of this, or not really?
Not really, because no, not really. I mean, because you can kind of tell, like, based on the way people tweet, like, even if they're not super political sometimes, or even if they just say small things about politics, I feel like you can kind of get a general sense of rationality or being able to be reasonable about things.
Mhm.
So, not really. The people who reach out, I'm like, okay, they seem like a pretty reasonable person. I'm not surprised. But if they're like super into it, if they're like always watching Shapiro, always watching Rubin, always watching, then I'm a little more surprised, because then they're like kind of into it. They're watching the shows. They're, watching some of the same YouTube clips that I'll watch online. But
I know you mentioned affirmative action, and you did a recent podcast episode where you're talking about Harvard University and their discrimination against Asian Americans.
mm-hmm.
Can you kind of talk about that a little bit and kind of elaborate?
Yeah, so they were hit with a lawsuit for, discriminating against Asian Americans, because apparently they were able to like prove that their scores were higher, and based on their scores equal to other candidates, that they would have gotten in. But based on like a personality rating that was generated from, in-person face-to-face interviews with past alumni, that was what was bringing their score down. So they brought a case. I think it went to, I don't know what level of court. I don't follow that kind of stuff. I'm not that into politics, but they brought it to court. Apparently there's enough information to like continue looking into this. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, it was like they were scoring so much higher that if you went off of scores alone, that you would have a ton of Asians or a ton of Asian Americans, and they wanted to kind of distribute a little bit more evenly. So they would do interviews and say, well, this one's just not as interesting personally, which I think is totally fair game. Like, if you're going to pick students for your school, like, I don't think you should necessarily pick the students that make the best score. But I think for some people, and a concern for me, is that there's a double standard here, that if it was for another race, that they wouldn't make that personality rating. It would be like, okay, we have a ton of Hispanics at the top. Awesome. Push them through. Whereas when it's Asians, they're like, okay, let's take a couple of these out, throw some blacks, Indians, Samoans in the mix,
Do you think it has to do with like the model minority thing, where it's like, well, Asians are almost like white people now, so that we, like, on the oppression scale, we have to scale back because now there's too many Asians in college or something like
Yeah,
that.
because Asians make the most money, you know, in terms
doing
of
the best as far as like minorities in the US.
Yeah, I mean, when everything you're saying in politics is about an oppressor-oppressor relationship, and that the white man has power, and that's why minorities aren't doing well in America or can't make it in America, it kind of looks bad when you have a minority that's not only doing pretty well, but is actually doing better than whites. And it shoots a hole in their whole narrative, and it's not something that they want to address. That's why, in tech, they use this term underrepresented minorities, because the term minority should be descriptive enough. But because Asians are well represented in tech, they have this term underrepresented minority, which is basically every minority except for Asians. So they're saying, okay, we need to increase diversity for underrepresented minorities, and all they've done is taken every single minority and remove one that's doing well. So if you were doing that, you would, I mean, any logical person, I think, would say, why is this minority doing well? If our belief is that you're oppressed in America, you can't do well, and there's this one minority that's doing better than whites, that's doing better than the people who have power in your country, why aren't you looking into that? Instead, they just remove them from their group and continue forward. It's like, that's not how this should work. Any reasonable person would look at that minority and say, why is this outlier here? What's going on?
I guess we're not allowed to look at that because that's racist for some reason.
And that's the thing, because if it was like, some sort of like, let's say all of these people had read the same book, everybody would want to know, hey, what fucking book did you read, guys? Like, how did you guys read one book and all of a sudden you're making more than white people? But because all of those people are one race, liberals are like, oh shit.
Well,
That
also, they're you would think they'd be happy about that, but like kind of like how you get, you're saying how they just want to keep that narrative of, all these minorities are, doing terrible,
oppressed.
yeah, being oppressed and all that. But, and they always want to like try and pick them back up and do better. But then once a minority is doing better than whites, you would think, oh, this is great. Look at this. See, it can happen. But it's not like that. It's the complete opposite. They don't even acknowledge it. They're just basically ignoring it. Doesn't even exist, So in a way, that's like even more racist, I guess.
But I will say I am sympathetic to it because I think it's not a malicious decision that they're coming to. I think they're like, because Jordan Peterson talks about how the left, they tend to be more on like compassion. If you take the Big Five personality trait test or whatever, you tend to be more like, open. You tend to be more compassion, more empathetic, that sort of thing. So I think this comes from a position of empathy because they don't know how to address Asians or acknowledge that there might be something to Asians without feeling like they're being racist. And I don't think it has to be that way, because I think to them it almost feels like if you're saying, okay, Asians are doing something well, you're saying something negative about other races. When I think it's no different than, one football team beating another football team and saying, hey, how are you guys practicing? What is your coach doing? Why are you guys so much better than this team? I think it's no different than looking at Asians and saying, why are you guys doing so much better academically? What can we learn from you? But because it's aggregated to race, to them addressing it would feel like racism. And so I don't know how to like get them to not feel like that. And that's why I think it's important to kind of approach that subject with that or with that possibility in mind, because I think it's easier to try and convince them that they're not being racist and to kind of look at this perspective. Whereas if you're just assuming that they're coming from it from a malicious intent or that they are racist, it's going to be really hard to make progress in that conversation. So I think it's important to come from it from, it's okay to acknowledge this. This isn't a racist thing to do.
Yeah, that's true. Because I agree. I think they're probably not, like, they don't mean for it to sound like it's, like they're trying to silence them, but they're afraid of what people will think if it's like you said, if they say something good about, or like they acknowledge that Asians are doing something good, then that kind of looks like they're saying that other races aren't doing as well. But if we don't have that conversation, then nobody will be able to improve because we can't even talk about it. So that's the problem here, I think.
Yeah. And plus, eventually, we are going to get to a point where we're going to have to say, hey, some things in parenting are being done and they're not good. They're not good for child development. And some of those might also be able to be aggregated up to a certain race. Like if you were to like say, look at how often the parents are talking about homework in the house. I'm guessing Asian parents are talking about it more than other races. They're bringing up the word homework at dinner. They're talking about it in the house. I would guess it's said more often than in other races. And you have to like figure out a way to address those kinds of differences as well without the left feeling that they're being racist. I mean, I can understand why it's a tough issue for them, but to me, somebody like me, it's pretty easy because if somebody says something to me that's like negative about Korean culture and it's objectively true, I don't get offended by it.
Yeah.
Like there was this issue with like with air traffic control and pilots, where like in Korean culture, it's very impolite to like speak above an elder person, like speak above somebody who's older than you, even on the job. Like even if it's something that they're doing that's objectively wrong, like, hey dude, you're not supposed to put that there because you might chop somebody's hand off. You're like just supposed to let it happen because he's older than you. Like, I mean, obviously that might be an extreme, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Right.
So while they're flying, there were times where like the pilot was doing something wrong and they didn't want to speak up against the pilot because he's a superior, and like they crashed planes, people died. So they were trying to figure out how to fix this. They changed everything. So I think flights globally now, like everywhere, everything's in English. So that difference alone makes it easier for people from Korean culture to like speak above a subordinate, apparently, because they're speaking in English. It's like a different social dynamic, so they're more comfortable doing that. So stuff like that, if somebody said, "Hey, Koreans got some shit to fix because people are dying because of this weird cultural thing you guys have, or this cultural difference, even if it's not weird," it's like, okay, we have to address that difference. If it's going to save lives, we have to acknowledge that this might not be a good thing. If their social dynamic in a plane is to not question a superior when you're going down, we might not want that cultural norm in the cockpit.
So what you're basically saying is that English is the dominant language.
Yeah, as far as I know. I might be wrong. Somebody's going to like Google this and be like, what is he talking about? But I remember reading something about that. Like Korean flights used to be able to talk in Korean, and now they don't. I hope I'm right
about that.
I hope I'm right.
That is an interesting kind of dynamic. Like that's a huge extreme if that's how it was, where, oh, we're going down, but I don't want to say anything because it might hurt someone's feelings or.
Well, it's like a cultural thing, right? I kind of get it.
Yeah.
You can't really do that in Asian culture.
Oh my God, some people might die. Whatever. You can't talk down to a superior.
It's kind of like,
I can't dishonor my family.
Right.
Yeah.
Really? Like,
no dishonorable. You must be very honorable.
Let's save lives. So let's hope that's real.
Right.
Yeah. So as far as like, because you mentioned like family life, were your parents strict with you when it came to like school and stuff, or?
Not really. I mean, to the point to where we had to like make decent grades. It wasn't like have to be every single grade as an A, but we couldn't slack off either. But no, I wasn't like a super traditional Asian family by any means. It wasn't like 4.0 or die type of thing.
Yeah.
So thank God. But I was kind of strict on myself when it mattered, like in college. That was when I just got disciplined myself. But everything before that I didn't care about. I just did well because I had to or I'd get in trouble.
Yeah.
So your dad didn't bring any of that military background or anything to you in terms of how he parented?
No, my dad's not like traditional military by any means. He's pretty chilled out relative to a lot of those guys, I think.
That's good, because I heard stories about that.
Yeah, other than haircut and look, I don't think you'd really be able to like guess if you met him that like, oh, this guy was definitely in the military. He's not like a Jocko Willink, if you know that guy. He's not like one of those dudes.
Mm.
He's this like big podcaster, but he like looks like a military dude,
Mm-hmm.
He has that like stereotypical
like
buff kind of
grunt look. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how your dad is too.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's like I could tell that your dad is in the military.
Oh, yeah.
Air Force, whatever.
Right.
It's all the same to me.
Yeah. It's kind of funny the story behind my brother going in the Army because I don't exactly remember why.
I don't even know the story.
But I could be getting it wrong, but it is funny because my dad's saying you should go in the Air Force, whatever, and my brother's like, no, I want to actually do stuff. I want to go in the Army. Basically joking with him, Yeah. Air Force are lazy and they don't do anything. They get all the nice stuff, and I want to be in the Army. I want to do
Get
like
down in the dirt.
Yeah, I want to be, all that stuff. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, they all have their own stereotypes and all that.
So you never, I know before, like when we first started, you were talking about how you never got into the military or anything because of your politics or anything like that. Is there anything, I guess, I don't know how to say this, but like, it's kind of like the support the troops, but you don't support the policy. I feel like that's kind of how it was. Mm-hmm. Right. Is that kind of how you would think if you were going to be in, it would kind of be like that?
Yeah. I don't want anything bad to happen. I'd like to minimize as much damage as possible, but, a lot of differences with like foreign policy, or just think that a lot of that stuff should be scaled back. We shouldn't be in as many countries as we are with just like bases that are set up there. Just more of like a non-interventionist policy, which is, I think, where I kind of lined up with Ron Paul a bit more. whereas he was like really wanting to scale that back. Whereas I don't think any other president really says that. I mean, they say it, but they don't really do it because, I mean, you saw with like Obama, it's not like we got that much of a difference.
Yeah.
It just seemed like everything just continued.
But he was cool and suave about it, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That makes sense.
You rode on stage on a skateboard once.
Oh yeah.
But
Wait,
well, no, he's talking about. I'm thinking you're talking about Beto or how you pronounce his name. Hey guys, look at me! I'm on a skateboard. Wee, vote for me.
what?
You don't remember that when he
No.
went on stage and he skateboarded?
No.
It just happened recently.
Oh, I don't know.
I remember seeing a video of it like years ago. I don't know.
I don't remember the Obama thing, but when you said skateboard, that's the first thought was Beto O'Rourke skateboarded on stage, and look, I can beat Ted Cruz. I can skateboard, and Ted can't. That's how cool I am. You know, politicians trying to be hip and cool. That's just.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my position on it. You know, just like pretty indifferent about it, but more of a libertarian, more of like a non-interventionist, more of a just like try to keep to ourselves as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I'll fully admit I'm like the least qualified person to talk about that kind of stuff now, because foreign policy politics is probably like the area I keep up the least now. So most of mine is like current event bullshit.
It's probably for the best because a lot of it's depressing.
It is depressing.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't got into it.
Yeah.
He's really into it.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks a lot, Scott Horton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't follow that stuff at all. Never really have either, but like never super in depth. But yeah, not my area of expertise by any means.
So I got this weird question. They were asking me, but I thought like, oh, this would be a good thing to bring up on the live stream because it's about, I guess, half Asian or Asian people. So they asked me, and I'm going to ask both of you, actually.
Okay.
What is your opinion on internalized racism and how some Asian women view Asian men as their family members instead of potential romantic partners?
I don't even know where to begin with this.
Yeah.
What the hell? This is like one of those things where I have to like assume so many false truths.
Exactly.
Answer.
That's why I can't answer it. I'm like, why are they tweeting at me like this stuff? I get these questions all the time.
There's so many things about this mindset that I disagree with, that it's like I have to accept 3 things that I just fundamentally disagree with to like make a comment.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't have that much experience with Asian women. I mean, most places I've grown up, I didn't like live around them, but yeah, this whole like view, I mean, I think a lot of times it's just them not being attractive. Like they're just not attractive as a partner, and they view it as a fault of them also being Asian, when really I just think it's they're not attractive. They're not interested in you as a person. You know, it's just like that you're sensitive about it. So you think that's why you're not attracted to that person. You think that's why she's not into you, when really she's just not into you. And then they make it this whole thing about Asian women not liking Asian dudes, and then they make a fucking subreddit about it, and then it becomes this online culture. And then, you know, it's like, oh, now this is a thing. Now this is like men going their own way, but Asians have their own fucking version of it. You know, it just breeds into this bullshit. Meanwhile, there's like how many billion people in China that are married to each other?
Right.
I think they're pretty okay with Asian dudes. Like, just shut the fuck up. Become a good person. Like, start working. Look, I live by Georgia Tech. I've walked on that campus. There's a lot of Asian people. Not exactly getting my panties wet. There's a lot of unattractive dudes. There's a lot of Asian kids that, you know, it's like 7:55. They're running to class. They have like cowlicks. They look like they just woke up because they were probably studying like 16 hours. Like, no fault to them. He has a 4.0. But at the same time, if you're trying to get girls, like, look in a mirror. There might be a reason for it. So that's my take on it. You're sensitive about being Asian. You think that's why she's not into you. You're just not as interesting as a person as you think you are. So get a hobby, become interesting, and get off of our Hapa.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Yeah, it's all about preferences, because not everybody's going to be attracted to half Asian men or just Asian men in general. You know, I mean, I'm
I'm
sure.
not that into Asian women. You don't hear them bitching about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just really not. I mean, some of them are cute, but in general, that's not like what I would date. Am I racist? I don't know.
Oh, that's on the record that you're a racist.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, probably my white half taught it to me.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm just not. Like, I don't like short hair as much as I like long hair. Sorry. I can't explain why I'm into the things I'm in. I can't explain why I like chocolate ice cream more than strawberry. I just do.
That's how I should answer that question. I should be like, I can't explain why I like this food more than that food. And they'll be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I used to hate ginger. Now I love it. I don't know. I can't explain that.
That's weird. How dare you? You're supposed to be Asian. You're supposed to like ginger. Come on now.
I mean, now I do. So now I'm good. Now I'm in the club.
That reminds me, this is random, but my brother, when he was younger, he used to hate rice. And I'm like, and my family was like, how can you hate rice? You're half Asian. And like every time I went to my grandparents' house, they're like, you have to eat that rice, so they're going to get really mad at you. But now he likes rice, so it's okay. And he lives in Japan now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rice is delicious. But I'm sure if you're a little kid and all you're eating is candy, it probably tastes pretty plain.
Yeah,
I could say that. So I'd like to know what that little kid's diet was at the time.
Well, it's kind of like all those videos where you see kids eating vegetables, but they hate it. And your first thought is, well, like you were saying, they probably all they know is, French fries and hamburgers,
sweet stuff.
Yeah, sweets. And then you give them a piece of broccoli and they want to punch you in the face and throw up.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also wonder if your palate just like matures as you get older. I mean, I know your palate can mature just by like, if you drink beer and then you just start drinking more beers, like you're going to become more attuned to those flavors. You're going to pick up different things. You might even like it more. But I also wonder if like in the same way that you just get stronger as you get older, if like your ability to appreciate different tastes also grows as you get older.
Yeah.
Like I wonder how much of it is consuming a wider range of diet and also some of it's growing older. I think it's probably a little bit of both because then there's just picky people that are old and it's like, you're fucking 30. Like, why do you still own macaroni and cheese? Like, grow up, dude.
Macaroni and cheese.
Eat something.
I think that's one thing that bothers me when people are like, I don't want to eat that. And they won't even try it, like not even once. And they're just like, I know I'm going to hate it, so I'm not going to try it.
I won't be your friend if you're that type of person. I mean, I might like hang out with you, but I'll never like fully respect you as a person because I'll try anything once. And as long as it's not going to have like some super serious negative side effect, like if it's like obviously like there's something bad to it, like fecal matter or some shit like that. Like I'm not going to eat that. But just like some weird part of the body, some weird organ, like I'll eat anything once.
Like how Winston and C-Moke had that cow dung hot pot.
Yeah, apparently in China there's a cow dung hot pot.
You try that?
Nah, hard pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest food you've ever eaten?
The weirdest?
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's probably like for a lot of people, just because it's actually like still moving, is like the squid like tentacles. The last time I was in Korea, we were at like a fish market, and then you just take it there, they cut it up, and then they just like drizzle olive oil, salt, and pepper. And when they bring it on the plate, it's still moving, and then you just eat them. I mean, they're pretty plain. It's like eating really crunchy or like really undercooked, very basically seasoned noodles, essentially.
That are still moving.
Yeah. So it's not like a really nasty taste. If you've eaten octopus, it kind of tastes like that. That pretty, whatever texture you want to call that, whatever taste. It's a pretty plain taste, I think.
Have you ever had because my brother, when he went to Korea, he had stingray and he said it was the worst thing he's ever tasted.
I don't think I've had it.
Okay, well, don't have it.
Yeah, maybe when I was really young, but not this past time. I didn't have that.
All right, so going away from disgusting food or all that stuff.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about esports because I believe you're pretty big into it. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite game to play?
My favorite game to play right now would probably be Fortnite.
Oh, that's a big game so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about all time? What's your favorite video game of all time?
Ooh, that's tough. Oh man. I don't know, because it's weird, because some games like I didn't put a ton of hours into, but they were still like some of the best games ever. Whereas some games, like if you played World of Warcraft, you might have put a ton of hours into it, but you don't think it's the best game ever. Um, Diablo 2 is up there. I put a bunch of hours into that game. Unreal Tournament would probably be up there. Um, hmm, yeah, I don't know. I'm a big shooter person, so yeah, I would say those. But yeah, Diablo, like those games are iconic. Like StarCraft, I was a big StarCraft person too.
No, of course.
So cool.
Yeah. I mean, I was more into StarCraft as like, even though I played it, I was more into it later as an esport, like actually watching it than I was playing it.
So have you been to any tournaments or participated in any or no?
I went to this one IPL 5 in 2013, I think. It was in Las Vegas. It was a big StarCraft 2 and League of Legends tournament.
Okay.
So I went to that. I've been to one or two in Atlanta, and they have TBS here, Turner Broadcasting, and Turner Broadcasting owns this CS or this Counter Strike League, E League. So I used to work at Turner, and one day I went there when they had one of their Friday shows. So I've been to that. Um, so a little bit of Counter Strike, a little bit of StarCraft in real life.
It's, I don't know, for me at least, it's kind of weird to see like Counter Strike on the big screen and it's on like ESPN or something like that. I don't know. It's just weird because I never would have imagined video games on ESPN or Fox or anything like that. I never would have thought that was gonna, that was possible because it was just, it's such a niche type of thing. Obviously when people think of sports, they don't think of video games. They think of football or basketball or whatever.
Yeah, and it's gotten really big over the past few years too because of companies like Twitch. Like Twitch was the one that really like got it going because like anything for the longest time, whatever was going to get big was basically what was ever shown on TV. So it's like baseball, football, basketball, like there just weren't a lot of options. Part of it was whatever they're showing, whatever there's an interest for. And then another part of it was just that there just wasn't the technology to do it. It was only TV stations. That's all you had. But with the internet, with stuff like Twitch, all of a sudden people can pretty cheaply start broadcasting from their house or from a tournament, and anybody that has internet and Twitch can go watch these games, and then these communities through the internet just grow so quickly. I mean, you see like year after year after year, it's like such an upward trend because more and more people just find out about it online. So yeah, it's crazy because it came out of nowhere, but it's also getting bigger than ever, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes. A lot of people are critical of it, but man, I think it's here to stay for sure.
Yeah, I used to watch it more. I used to watch more of the fighting games on Twitch and all their tournaments like Tekken and Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. I used to watch that. There was a time period where I was really into it. Not as much now as I was, but yeah.
Yeah, I watch fighting games a little bit, but I watch it pretty casually. Like
Yeah.
I watch it in like the same way that I watch a sport like tennis. Like I don't keep up with tennis really, but like bigger tournaments, once the majors are around, then I'll start watching. That's kind of how I am with fighting games. Like Evo, whenever Evo's around, I'll watch Evo. But other than that, it's like pretty casual. If
Yeah.
it's a grand finals for a big tournament, I'll watch basically.
Yeah. Yeah, Tekken's probably my favorite fighting game if I had to choose one.
Yeah, that was the fighting game I played the most growing up.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Tekken's fun to watch and Mortal Kombat too whenever they had those. It's just I don't know. It's always cool to look, there's Scorpion versus Kano or something. I don't know, it's just weird to see it like that. But yeah, it's pretty cool that it's gotten pretty big, so
Yeah, Evo's gigantic, man. Like this past year's Evo was insane. Their community has gotten bigger year over year. Most people don't even know about this. Like they don't know that, stadiums like Madison Square Garden are getting sold out for League of Legends. The average person has no idea. But meanwhile, it's going on, and you know, League of Legends World Championships gets more global viewers than the NBA Finals, the World Series, uh, like a lot of major sports big games, and most people are completely unaware of it. and they're like, oh, esports, nobody's interested in it. Meanwhile, it might be bigger than one of their favorite sports.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So we have a couple more questions that we want to ask you, and they're pretty light-hearted questions.
all right.
So we want to ask, do you prefer Samsung or Apple?
I would have to say Apple. I mean, for a lot of reasons, because I can't name any Samsung products really off the top of my head other than their phones.
Yeah.
Unless you're asking exclusively about phones. But yeah, either way, my answer would be Apple. Yeah.
Is there anything about Samsung phones that you do like that you would actually prefer over Apple?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about getting one, the like Note 9 or whatever the hell it is, the most recent one, because I just upgraded. But I do like a lot of the openness of Android. You know, I'm not a hater on either one in any way. It's just easier for me to have an iPhone because I have a Mac computer and I like doing all the syncing. I can AirDrop stuff. I have messages. That's the biggest reason I use Apple right now, is just because I have a Mac. If I got rid of this, I would probably go back to Android just for a little bit, at least to try it out for one generation of a phone.
That's kind of how we are. Everything that we have is Mac, so we're like, might as well keep the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
AirDrop everything.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question, and I don't know if we haven't really asked everyone, but we ask some people, and it's a question that's very important to us. So you need to answer it right, because if you don't, then I'm going to end the stream. We're ending the stream anyway after this anyway. So anyway, and I'm sure people in the chat will know what I'm talking about. But
yeah, they already know.
Yeah. Okay. So do you like pineapple on pizza?
Oh, hell no, man. That's a sin. That's a crime. No, that's disgusting. I think mixing meat with fruits is just a culinary. It should never happen. Like, why would you ever do that?
What about like pork and applesauce?
Yeah, that sounds disgusting. I don't know. Meat and fruit should never be mixed unless it's like a spice, like a very small, tiny portion of it. But actually, like cooking fruit or it being a big part of it, no, never. Pineapple on pizza, no, never.
And you've tried it before, right?
No.
Hey, didn't you say earlier that?
Yeah, like, come on now.
No, I definitely have. It's yeah, it's just not my thing. Pineapple's just too sweet as a fruit too. Like, it's just way too sweet. That thing's basically syrup. So if you are gonna put a fruit on pizza, it would have to be like more subtle.
What, like grapes?
If you could do a pizza though that was sweet, that would work though. Like in the same way you do salads that are kind of sweet and it kind of works. You could do a pizza like that where the bread tends to be like more of the greens and everything, and you're basically eating like the salad that's sweet. I don't know, but
you like
just not pineapple on pizza.
Sweet bread, and then cream cheese icing, and then and then fruit. I don't know.
Yeah. So okay. So it's a no from Adam, a yes from Roaming, and
no. Didn't Roaming say no?
She said.
I'm pretty sure she said yes.
No. Guys,
I thought she said yes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone in the chat remember if she liked pineapple pizza?
I'm pretty sure.
I caught the tail end of that the other night, but I'm pretty sure. I think yes.
Yeah. And then Larry Sharp also said no. He said that if you like pineapple on pizza, you should go to prison
for 20 years.
That's funny.
See, I knew there's a reason why I wish that guy would run for governor of Georgia.
Right.
But yeah.
Oh, Circle said hell no. Really? No.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I think Circle's right. God. Anyway, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So yeah. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end it. Thank you so much, Adam, for joining us, and it was a lot of fun. And I hate you now because you don't like pineapple on pizza. So
great ending. No.
Nah, it's gross, man. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's fun.
We'll have to do it again soon.
Yep.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us in the chat. Okay, everybody.
Yep.
Bye.